Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, all. Welcome to day 2 of 15-day online international faculty development program on research publication excellence from manuscript preparation to successful journal acceptance, organized by Jammu and Kashmir Economic Association and Social Science and Humanities International in collaboration with Global South Research Foundation, B.S. Abdur Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology, School of Business, Manav University, and College of Vocational Studies, University of Delhi. I am Dr. Arya Gopan, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Kristu Jayanti, University, Bengaluru. On the behalf of organizing team, I welcome our resource person, coordinators, committee members, and our esteemed audience consisting of research faculties, research scholars, and other researchers from across universities. Thank you for your presence and active participation. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our resource person for the day, Dr. Khalid ul Islam. Dr. Khalid ul Islam is currently working as an assistant professor of finance at State School of Management, Bengaluru. He holds a PhD degree in finance from University of Delhi and has earned recognition from his research contributions through publication awards at international forums. His area of expertise includes quantitative finance, corporate finance, financial modeling, behavioral finance, and finance markets. He has been recognized for his research contributions through publications in reputed international indexed journals in ABDC, Scopus, and Web of Science. He is currently serving as a co-principal investigator on an ICSSR funded research project examining the behavioral and cognitive dimensions influencing UPI enabled credit usage among consumers in India. His research interests also include personal finance, digital payments, financial inclusion, machine learning applications in finance, and Islamic finance. We extend a warm welcome to you, Dr. Khalid Aslam sir. Today, he will be addressing us on the topic the research cycle from problem identification to journal publication. Before we begin, I would like to remind you a few instructions. Like, please keep your microphones muted and keep your camera on. And you can raise questions after putting on that hands button in your screen. And if you are having any doubts, you can also type your queries in the chat box, and later we'll be addressing your doubt as per the convenience of our resource person. So with that, I now hand over the virtual podium to Dr. Khalid ul Islam sir. Sir, over to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Arya, for the introduction, and
Yes, sir.
I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Firdaus Saab, who has invited me for this on this auspicious event and this wonderful platform wherein we can share our ideas, particularly related to the most important aspect that is there currently with academics, which is publication. I hope that I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, fine. Thank you. So, primarily, as Dr. Arya and Dr. Firdaus has already mentioned that there will be questioning also from the participants. So, I would like to accept questions whenever they arise. Okay, and Dr. Arya will moderate, depending on the relevance of the questions. And so, so I appreciate if the participants will be asking questions while our session during our session, and I don't feel it. I don't believe that it's prudent that we keep the questions towards the end because many times there are confusions and clarifications that are required before we can proceed ahead. So with that, I would like to first share my presentation and we'll go in a flow. So can I share this, ma'am? I can share my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just give me a minute. So is my presentation visible to all of you? I hope it is.
The screen is getting shared only, sir. Yeah, now it is visible.
Okay, thanks. So good evening, all of you. So as I have been introduced, and we are going to have a discussion on the research life cycle. Actually, that is the topic of our today's session, from problem identification to journal publication. So before we move ahead, I want to set the stage with respect to the components of this particular presentation and the ideas that I'm going to share in this session. So I have kept this thing in mind that I want to make it very simple. Okay, I want to ensure that the participants have a learning from this session in terms of understanding the entire publication process, right from the beginning, okay, when we have an idea up to the acceptance and publication of the paper in specific journal. So I have tried to keep it as simple as possible, with experiences that I have had during my publication process. I'll be sharing that well. So primarily, before moving ahead, somebody something there. Okay, fine. So before we proceed, I just want to ask, we just want to ask ourselves the question that why do we have to publish? Why is publication so important, right? So ideally, if we see that, the idea of publication is to share knowledge, to come up with new ideas, right? New concepts, new theories, or might be, new ways of testing the existing theories, testing the data, looking at, differences, patterns, and all that. But if we look into the reality of things, we know that why we publish, there are specific reasons. We have most of the times gone, we have left the actual idea of publication, which I have already described earlier. So why we publish? Why do we want to publish? We know that we are, most of us are academicians. We are working in various universities across the globe. So there is a minimum requirement for all of us to contribute with respect to publications. So that is why we publish these days. We want to have a good career growth. We want to get promoted. And we know in academics, without publications, nothing is going to happen. So we have seen over the past at least couple of decades that, people who publish in good quality journals, they are able to get promoted and achieve a significant career growth. And mostly, why we publish is to get recognition. I have seen people who are publishing even though they have achieved that career goal. Okay, maybe they have achieved the highest position that we can achieve in academics, but still they are publishing. Okay, they are working hard, putting their efforts, and to get recognition maybe. But in the broader picture of things, we would say that yeah, there would be always an element of to share our ideas, to improve the knowledge base. That is why we publish. Okay, why we are having this specific session today or this workshop is to understand that publication, if we attempt from the quality perspective to improve the knowledge base, the other things will follow automatically. So we'll be able to meet the minimum requirements, get the career growth, and we'll get the recognition. So basic idea is that we need to improve the knowledge base. We need to share our ideas, new theories, new concepts, okay, and all the other things associated. So we know we are rated by what we produce and not by what we attempt. In today's time, I may have a pipeline of research works which are in the process of, you know, uh, publication. I would say I'm writing on some ideas, okay, developing some ideas, writing on them, collecting data, and maybe I am sending them into the, you know, for certain journals, like, for their consideration. Okay, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is, you know, what we have produced. A farmer might work for the entire year. Okay, he would get the good quality seeds. He would give, you know, water the the soil, till the soil, and do all the required things that are to be done. But at the end of the day, what is important is that whether the crops are harvested or not. Okay, so these are the crops that we expect to harvest out of this process. And having a publication is a, you know, is a joy in itself, because we know that there are multiple aspects which are linked to it, and we know we are living in a world order wherein, for academics at least, I know there's a concept of publish or perish. If you publish, you remain, you grow, but if you don't, you perish. So this is one of the topmost priorities that we have as academicians, as people who are working at the top seat of knowledge, which is universities. So we need to publish. We need to publish, else there's a lot of competition. Okay, people are doing so much of putting so much of hard work in this. Okay, that, you know, there is no other way than to publish, or we have to perish. So with this idea, why is this workshop important? So let's ask ourselves the question: why is this workshop important? Why do we need a forum, a platform wherein we need to share ideas related to how to publish? Okay, I think that the crux of the workshop and the session today is how to publish, right? How to get a good publication out of your work. We know that competition has become very intense. Competition has become very intense. People, if you are working on an idea, you should be sure that there is somebody else
Plan
at some other point. Yeah. Sorry,
ஏன்னா மெஸ்ஸி தான் வந்து அவன் 19 இருக்கு.
something there. Okay. So, anyways, so whenever we have an idea and we are working on an idea, so one thing we should remember, that there is somebody else at some other corner of the world, okay, of the globe, who would be working on the same idea. There are multiple people working simultaneously on the same idea. Okay, we know, if we talk about from my domain, we know that there is a very famous theory in finance which is called as the capital asset pricing model, and this model was developed in 1970. And it won't be a surprise to me now to understand that this particular theory was simultaneously given by three different academicians from three different, areas, regions, who were not connected actually. So likewise, any other research domain, you will see that people work on specific ideas, similar ideas at the same time. So there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of competition, and we have to ensure that we go through. Okay, and not only that, there's a very high publication cost. We can see nowadays every journal is asking for an APC. Okay, so there's a very high cost of publication. APCs are there, article processing cost, and that would range, like, in thousands of dollars. It's a very huge amount, given, the academics and how many of the universities don't provide the funding. The cost of publication is very high. Not only that, we are spending our energy, we are spending our time, and that has an opportunity cost. If we are putting that time and energy in publication, that would have been utilized for some other, maybe, some other productive use. But we are not doing that as academicians. Because we have a need, right? So there's a huge cost of publication. And on top of that, the rejection rates in good quality journals is very high. So if we see that majority of the top tier journals, their acceptance rate is around 2 to 3%, or mostly 5%. So what do you understand from that? Out of 100 papers, only five are accepted, 95 are rejected. So, so that is why this workshop is important, right? We need to understand the process. We need to understand that how we should go on with this publication process. We need to, efficiently utilize our time and resources and our efforts, so that, the time that we are putting in, the efforts we are putting in, it doesn't go waste, right? So we are able to generate a good quality paper. And we know today's time, there is no value of, getting publications in predatory journals. People and institutions, and who are interested in your manuscripts, in your papers, they understand, what sort of journal a particular journal is, what sort of platform that is. So, it's very important for us to understand that we have to target our journals to high quality journals. And we know a lot of means, which we are going to discuss later on, through which we understand how to identify whether a particular journal is of good quality or not. And there are levels as well. So I would not suggest you that you straight away go to the top level. Okay, we can start from the beginning as somebody who has just started his or her PhD. So they can start from the lower level, but ensure that the quality of the journal should be good. Then there are levels, as I already mentioned. Moving on. So what should you expect to get from today's session? So are we going to talk about methodology like any other workshop that we have been attending, which usually talk about the methodology? Maybe for time series, there are different methods. For primary data, there are different methods like confirmatory factor analysis, structural equation modeling, MOS, smart PLS, or co-integration and other techniques. No, this session is not about methodology. Neither it's about a specific tool, okay, or a technique, right? Particular, which is related to how we write a specific, type of research. No, it's not for that, okay? And neither are we going to provide in this session any understanding of or any, usage of AI in research. Okay, I'm not against use of AI in research. You can ethically use AI in research. Okay, I don't think that there is anyone here among the participants or anybody else who is not using AI in research, but we have to do that ethically. However, given that this session is not about how to use AI in research, neither is it about how to write the analysis, which many of us struggle with, how to write the analysis, how to interpret a particular finding, right? But this session goes beyond that. So what is it all about? It's about the process from beginning to end. The entire will cover the entire research process. So instead of discussing theory, models and all other things, today I will share with you, my notes, research notes. Not like, exactly this is what I have kept as a note, but while we will be skimming through the slides, I'll give you a glimpse of, certain, things that I have been developing, I have been using, and I have been, I mean to say, doing in my research. So we'll talk about how to generate ideas, how to do literature research, search, how to deal with rejections, how should we take rejections, right? Because most of us who are in the publication, this process, or publication industry, I would say, generally in academics, okay, when we start publishing, we get a lot of rejection, right? How to deal with rejections? Okay, are rejections bad? We're going to talk about it. Okay, the perspectives will be different. We are going to address some reviewers comments, how to deal with comments, right? And then how to respond to those comments. So this is the, setting the stage of today's discussion. Now, in research, what do we expect? It's uh, I think that everyone among us who, when we started our research journey, we felt like, primarily, I'm going to do something new, what nobody else has done. That is how we think originality, right? We think that originality is something that nobody has done, which is not true to some extent. Yeah, it is true that something which has not been done earlier, it is original. But is that the limit to originality? No, it is not the limit to originality. Originality is how do we bring new perspectives from existing knowledge. That's originality as well. How we address specific problems, through different methods that have not been utilized as of now. Okay, we can use methodology. We can use robust methods. We can use For example, earlier, many of our methods were based on, whatever was existing in the literature when technology had not developed to an extent. But now myself, I use machine learning, okay, deep learning in analysis. That is originality, right? Okay. Anyways, I'm not going to discuss much about originality, as it's going to come later on. Right now, what we expect apart from that when we start our research journey, what we expect is that research is some sort of a linear flow. It goes in a linear flow. Okay. So there's an idea that I generate. Okay. I have an idea. Based on the idea, I do some literature survey. From the literature survey, I identify a gap. I set the hypothesis. I collect the data, do the analysis, write the paper, submit to the journal, and it gets published. I believe that most of us, when we started our research journey, we had this idea. Am I right? Yeah. So I believe that all of us had this idea. None of us here, when we started, or those who had just started their research journey, would be thinking in a similar fashion that it's like a linear flow. Okay, it runs smoothly. That is what happened with me when I started writing this book. Uh, I when I sent up one of my initial papers to a good reputed journal, I was shocked, because I thought within myself that this idea which I have done is very novel. It's very original. Human beings give more weightage to their own ideas. That is what happened with me, right? It's a sort of a bias that many of us, in research, we see something that we have done, okay, and we feel like we have done something very original. Okay, that might not be the case. Okay, because the people on the other side, they have different perspectives about those things, right? I'm not saying that whether those are right or wrong, but I'm saying that that is the case, right? So I got rejection, and I was like, how is it possible? How did I get rejection? And then, some other journal sent me some, points to revise my paper. I felt like, this is nonsense. I would never go, and revise my paper. Why on earth should I do that? Because, I have done everything with absolute perfection. Okay, so I did not do that. I sent it to some other journal. And fortunately, it got published in an ABDC listed journal at that time. Even when I did not know, the meaning of ABDC. And being very honest with all of you, when I started my research PhD, that was long back in 2014 in India, in Delhi School of Economics, even the people there would have an idea, but I had no idea what ABDC, what Scopus, and all Web of Science and all other things. Okay. So, but fortunately, I selected a journal, and it came out to be later on as an ABDC journal. Anyways, the idea was that I did some changes. Okay, I had to follow a process which I understood from that point onwards, that research is not going to be in a linear flow. It is not. It's a zigzag. Okay, so what we actually see. I hope you are able to see my screen. There is nothing interfering with your with the screen, right?
No, sir. We are able to see the screen.
Okay. 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 Thank you. So what we say is that when we conduct our research, okay, we may have an idea. We can, from the idea, have a gap. Okay, most of us, start with a gap before going into the literature review, and I personally do that. Okay, which is actually to some extent right and to some extent wrong. Why I'm saying that it's right? Because we generally have an idea about a specific domain. We work in specific areas wherein we have some sort of understanding and familiarity. Okay, so we might have some gap. Okay, we might have some understanding of what is being done and what not. But then once we do the literature review, we come to understand that this is the wrong gap. Okay, so it has already been published. Maybe I didn't know about that, right? So then we have to extract the new gap, okay, which is the right one. Then we have to look at the data. Okay, we have to see whether this particular research idea which we have generated and we have identified that there is a gap, do we have data so that we can proceed ahead? Okay, so we have to look at the data. Okay, we have to get data. There have been many instances when I have started a work, but there wasn't data. I'll give you an example. I started to work on ESG, ESG, environment, social governance, with respect to Indian firms. I wanted to see sharing this idea with you because already I have been doing work on this. Anyways, it doesn't harm me if people work on similar areas, and then we have different perspectives of the same problem. So it was actually to see that in our domain we see that uh, most of you might be knowing that there's a general principle in finance, which is the more the risk, the more the expected return. That is what we understand, in our in our day-to-day life as well. So more the risk, more the return, right? That is why stocks give us more return than bonds. Why? Because there is more risk in stocks. Just to give you a perspective, I'm saying this. So in that, I just wanted to know that if firms who are adopting ESG values in their organizations, their stocks should perform better than those who are not. Why? Because investors should be willing to pay a premium for those firms who are adopting ESG values in their firms. So I thought that this is a very good idea, and some work has been done in the developed market context. So I can do this. But when I went to our finance lab, which is a very well, established Bloomberg lab, we have 12 terminals of Bloomberg there. So when I searched for data, unfortunately, I found out that Bloomberg has not retained any ESG data on Indian firms. So, so I was, I didn't have any other option, rather than leaving the idea altogether. But thankfully, there are other sources as well, like the London School of Economics, sorry, the London Stock Exchange. They have this, Refinitiv database. And from there, you can get access to ESG data, but it's a paid version. You have to pay for that from an organization perspective. Anyways, okay, data is a problem. So we have to look at the data problem and we have to do reanalysis. Maybe sometimes we would have changed the idea, trim it. Okay. And then we write the paper, we send it to a journal, the journal can reject, we send it to some other journal. Maybe if we are fortunate enough, we get a major revision. We are lucky, we get a minor revision, or as earlier we can get another rejection. We then send it to a third journal. We can get another, like this. The process will repeat unless you get an acceptance from a paper, from a journal, and it gets published. So we understand from this that research is not it is not linear. It's an iterative process. Research is an iterative process. We have to keep on redoing the things. There are many instances when I have entirely changed my paper, my manuscript, okay, based on the recommendations that I received from the reviewers. Okay, and we have to do that. If we don't do that, there is no scope for publication, and we have to understand that our idea or our method or our way of looking at things may not be always right. So it is always to cross check, before you send your research to a journal, share it with somebody, you trust, so that they can have and they can provide their comments. Okay. They can look at it from their own perspective so that you can have an opportunity to trim it, to change it, okay, to redo the work, to make the correction, right, before you send it to a good journal for publication. And while doing that, you will definitely be able to, save some time. So I'm going to share with you some of my, experience with the publication as of now. So this is a specific paper which I have not, I mean to say, this paper is not my idea. It is one of my colleagues' idea. So if you can see towards the bottom, so the paper is value-based extensions to the theory of planned behavior in public insurance adoption. So you can see the word adoption here, okay, public insurance adoption. So in this paper, just I will not go into the detail of the paper because this is from finance perspective primarily. But I just want to show you that, when we send this paper to this particular journal, which is a Japanese political economy, they have rejected this paper, but they were very, they were very, would say, they provided us opportunity to resubmit it. Okay. So then we resubmitted. So ignore the middle one, unraveling the equity premium puzzle. It has just come in the because there were multiple submissions at the same time. So then you can see it was then it went to a major revision. Okay, and then thereupon there was a minor revision. But you can see that we have changed here. Okay, value-based extensions to TPB in public insurance continuance. So we had to change the framework of the paper from adoption to continuance. So based on the reviewers' recommendations, we had to redo the paper. Okay, and the idea of the paper altogether changed. So moving from adoption to continuance is a different ball game, right? And finally, some days before, we got the acceptance from the jury. So this is one specific example that I'm sharing with you, wherein you can see that research is not a direct field. Just a minute, there is issue. I think there was something going on in the background. Am I right?
No, sir. Screen is visible. Sound is also audible.
Sorry, it's my bad. Is my PPT visible to all of you?
Yes.
So there was something started to play in the background, a YouTube video which I was listening yesterday. So I thought that there's some interference. Anyways, so I was saying that we can understand from this specific example that research is not just a linear flow. Okay, so we have to submit, resubmit. There may be a major revision. So what do you understand by a major revision? Anybody here who can share their ideas about what do you understand from a major revision and a minor revision? Anybody here wants to share on this? Anyone? Anybody who wants to add something here? I mean to say, what do you mean by a major revision and a minor revision? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Sir,
Okay.
as of
So
my knowledge, I would
yeah,
say the
please, please.
major revision is like when they ask us to reanalyze the analysis work we done, and they are asking our questions, or they are asking us to do change the methodology of our research. Then we can say it as a major revision, sir. If it is a
Right.
minor revision, they will just tell us to correct some citation errors or the formatting or grammatical mistakes, etc., sir.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. So this is mostly what we mean, as a difference between major revision and minor revision. So when we get a major revision, this is a structural overhaul of the paper. So we might have to, change a significant portion of the paper, maybe our methodology, right? Maybe our analysis, maybe, the data, there's some problem with the data or something like that. And it's very important that a major revision has to be addressed. I mean to say, most of the times you have to address a major revision. We will be discussing this later on. That major revision has to be addressed. But what about a minor revision? Whenever you get a minor revision, as you said, that as there are small changes that are expected. But most of the time, you understand, even in a minor revision, you might be asked sometimes that there is some methodological change required. So if the author is asking you for a minor revision, remember, you don't have to actually do the change. What is expected from you is to justify it properly. But when you get a major revision, they expect you that they they, they believe that this is a fundamental error, fundamental problem in your research. There's a structural issue which is to be addressed. We are going to discuss this later on as we move on to the comments. But here, just to give you an idea, a major revision, because these terms have come here, major revision is that, and the minor revision is when maybe small changes, some references are missing, or like that. And many times, if we are asked to do some structural change, most of the times what they expect from you is to provide some justifications, but it again depends on how they are stating their comments. you'll be able to understand what they expect from you, mostly. But I'm just giving a general idea here, how you should take it. Another journal wherein I have published recently is the Journal of Indian Business Research. Okay, a parsimonious five-factor model for the Indian stock market, revisiting the idiosyncratic volatility anomaly. Just look at the title. Okay, I just want you to read the title again. This is an Indian journal. Okay, based in India. It's a globally recognized journal. It's a very good journal. Uh, okay, so let's see the process, because in this case, um, this particular, which I'm going to again come up with, you can see just here, this journal, I have submitted this paper. Okay, there was a major revision, and then next time there is an acceptance, right? So research can go like this as well. So there is a major revision, you address all the points, or you justify whatever you have done, then the editor will accept. He doesn't have any further problem. So don't think that every time you submit a paper, there has to be a revision. So it's not like that. Most of the times, whenever you submit a paper, you might be asked for a revision, or sometimes when you are justifying your contents of your manuscript, maybe they will not ask for any other change. They will straightforward accept your paper, right? This is another example that I'm taking from my published work to make you understand that research or the publication process is not always difficult as we have seen in the earlier. I will show you some more examples, okay, as we move ahead, because this entire session I have planned discuss examples with you so that you see exactly what is happening when we are sending our papers for publication, right? So you can see here it has been quite uh, smooth, but it was not that smooth as it appears, because this particular paper we had sent to some other journals before, and finally it got accepted in this. So it is not as smooth as it seems. Then I'll show you another paper. Even though I have done this paper entirely, but I was actually supervising my scholar, so I could not keep my first name. I need to say my name as the first one. But this paper was my idea. Okay, on the basis of this paper, I have that time, provided inputs to my scholar so that he could develop a PhD on this. And finally, when it was the time for publication, so generously I allowed him to be the first, and some other guy who has helped him in this as the second author. Anyways, the point is not there. The point is that if you look at this particular publication, it's in Taylor and Francis. The journal is Macroeconomics and Finance in Emerging Market Economies. I want to make two important notes here. Okay, one is, can you see there is a similarity between the name of the title of the journal and the title of my research? My research is Macroeconomic Variables and Stock Market Performance. Okay, and you can see the title of the journal is Macroeconomics and Finance in Emerging Market Economies, and we are doing this for BRICS. This particular paper, a PMG-ARGL, is a specific approach we are doing for the BRICS economies. And we can see how much similar the title of the journal is with the title of the manuscript. And you will not believe that we have sent this paper only to this journal, and it got published in 3 months. You can see this journal accepted this manuscript on 11th of August 2021. It, after some minor changes, it got accepted on 18th of September and published on 12th of October. So you can see only in 2 months, right? In 2 months, we have been able to publish this paper, and this is an ABDC Scopus Index journal. It's not a predatory journal. It's not a paid journal, not the paid journal where we pay the APC, a good journal. No, I'm talking about the paid journals, right? Okay, so this is a very good journal, but you have to understand one thing, and I am going to focus more on this particular aspect later on, which is that you have to look into the scope of the journal. If your manuscript fits the scope of the journal, I can guarantee you that 99% is the chance that your paper will be published in that particular journal. Now, there are methods to do that, which we are going to learn later on. There are specific, approaches that we can take. But here, I'll be very honest with you, we did not develop this paper for this specific journal. We we wrote a paper based on my idea that I had, given that my scholar had PhD in the same domain, in the same area. Then we looked for a journal, and fortunately, we got this journal. Okay, and it was very similar to our publication, and we got accepted. This paper got accepted, and in 2 months, it got published. So we understand that there are times that if you do your research, if you do your research into identifying a journal, your publication process is going to be very easy. Okay, but that might not be the case every time. You might not find an exact journal for your publication there in Scopus or ABDC or Web of Science or whatever big platforms we have there. It might not be there. Okay, so that then it becomes a little bit hectic. It becomes a little bit difficult. Okay, but mm, after putting efforts, we can do some decent work. Moving ahead, this is the research life cycle which I'm going to focus on, but I'm not going to discuss each and every part of this life cycle. Okay, so it starts with problem identification, which we are going to talk about in some detail. We are going to understand how to do literature review, not the actual review part, how to do review. That is specific to specific domains, and it is specific to specific types of papers. If you are doing a literature review, systematic review of literature, then the review paper, we call it as a review paper, the methodology is different. If you write a paper, the review, how you review the literature is different. If you do a bibliometric analysis, the method of doing the review is different. So I'm not going to go into the review, but screening of papers, which is very important. So why? Because I am here focusing more on how to get your manuscript publication ready, not that how to do specific things. Okay. Then gap is more important. We have to identify the gap, right? Objectives, theory, methodology, data analysis, writing. I'm not going to go into the detail of these things, but mostly journal selection, submission, review, revision, and finally publication. So I'm going to touch the most important aspects from my perspective that will help you to understand how to go on with this publication process so that you get a good publication. So my idea here, as I told you earlier, is not that to make you understand how to do a review, actually how to go through different manuscripts and what to identify, what not. That is very specific to domain. I'm not going to show you how to identify a gap, but I'm going to show you how to project that gap, how to present that gap, because that is more important as of from the perspective of publication. Many of us have gaps, but we don't exactly present that gap. Okay, objectives, theory, all that. I'm not going to go into detail, methodology, data analysis, writing part, but mostly, as I told you, how to select a journal, how to submit. I mean to say, submission, review, revision, how to address that, and finally we reach publication. Here I am sharing few of my publications from the past couple of years. Um, okay, which have been published on different domains. Like you can see here, the first publication, which is in the blue color, has been published in Springer, okay, in journal Asia Pacific Financial Markets. Then we will look into IMB Management Review Journal. So this is another publication. I have brought in specific examples wherein I'm aligning to what we have to discuss. I've selected specific publications that I have done in the past couple of years so that I can relate to the discussion that we are going to have. Then we have the Journal of Chinese Economic and Foreign Trade Studies. Then I have selected another paper of mine which is published in Studies in Economics and Finance. And finally, I have selected one paper which is published in IEEE. So I have intelligently selected these specific, publications. This is not a random choice. I've thought on it so that you understand, given specific scenarios that were associated with these specific publications. Now, moving on to the first part, which is problem identification. So every research paper starts with a idea, right? So before moving ahead, I just want to ensure that we are all on the same page. So if anybody wants to ask any question, there is a query, you are most welcome to ask any question, or if you have any clarifications, please go ahead. So whatever we have discussed earlier, okay, yeah. So moderator, kindly please see to it that if there's a question that we can address to that question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there is
Sir, you
somebody.
are not audible, sir. Samik, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Actually, ma'am, I want to raise a question. I want to ask you that I am a PhD scholar. I'm just started my research work, and my problem is that how to how to make when I selected a topic. So how to make a comparison of the various how to make good comparison of the various research gap. How to make the proper research gap with various journals by studying various journals. How to make a proper research in this.
Okay, good, good. Fair enough, fair enough. Any other question? Any other question from any other participant? So one question is on how to come up with a gap, right? If I'm not wrong. Any other question? See, gap is very important. We are going to discuss that. Absolutely. It's a very important question because everything that starts from a gap in research. Publishing in a good quality journal, we should have identified a gap. Okay? That sets our study different from what has been already done in academia. So let's move ahead. So first part is the problem identification. How do we identify a specific problem, right? First, we have to ask, okay, if we are going to do this research, okay, what motivated this research? Okay, so is there any motivation behind this research? Why did I think it was important? Is there anyone? Submit the paper to the same after giving rejection, making required corrections. Okay, so another question is there. Is it better option to submit the paper to the same journal after getting rejection, making required corrections? Okay, I will address this point also. Okay, no problem. Okay, I will address these 2 points. As of now, first is the gap, and the other question is that should we resubmit after getting rejection? Okay, I'll address this. Fine, good. So this is going to come. This is going to come. So the first question that we need to ask is what motivated this research? Okay, is it important? And was there a real world trigger that led to this research? Okay, these things we have to identify. Okay. Yeah, question. Yeah, please go ahead. So that I just want to take questions so that in my discussion I will be addressing these questions. Please go ahead. Yeah. Moderator, is there any problem that we can take questions like this?
Yes, sir. We can proceed like this.
Yeah, sure. So if you have a question, please write it down quickly. So I will keep these questions written because as we move on, I just don't want to, lose track of these questions. So I'll just put it down somewhere. So one is the gap. How do we identify this gap? Second is resubmission, right? To the same journal. Okay.
So the third question is about the ethical use of AI.
Okay. Third is the ethical use of AI.
How to use AI ethically while maintaining academic integrity.
Fine. So see, even though this is a very interesting question, but this is out of scope of today's discussion, right? So as I have told you
Hi.
earlier, I'm not being sorry.
Sir, I have one question. Can I ask right now?
Yeah, please go ahead because I just want to have some questions so that I can keep them in mind when I do the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, I just want to ask you one thing that while choosing a journal, as you mentioned us one example of macroeconomic variables and that you got published in the same journal. So does the title matters? Because like I give you example, if I have applied one methodology of panel data regression model and I have worked on the South Asia and my journal is also say South Asia Economic Journal of Sage Publications, but still after applying all the test, all the methodology, giving the proper theoretical methodology also, still they reject our paper. And one of the most important thing is that if two reviewers are giving us the feedback, both are on the extreme ends. Like it seems like that someone has got our paper in some other way and second person has got that in some other way. So how we can identify that? Because sometimes I feel when I download the papers that if you properly mention the methodology or you make a very fancy title, then the chances of getting accepted are very much high. But if you have done a good work but title is not up to that mark, like if I have saying simple title is there that foreign aid and financial development and empirical analysis, something like that, so does that things matter while getting our paper published or not? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, title. Okay. Fine. Fine. So, shall we proceed ahead with all these questions in mind? Okay. Fine.
Yes, sir.
The correct sequence of into consideration. Okay, sequence. Fine, no problem. We'll discuss this also. I'm going to thoroughly discuss this point. Yes. How do we choose a title that fits the scope? I'm going to answer all these. Okay, don't worry. Scope. Okay. Shall we move on now? Okay. So if you have more questions, we can take them later on. As I'm going to discuss, I'm going to address as of now whatever questions we have got because we don't have that much time as well. So I'll be, taking questions later on as well. But whatever is being mentioned, I'll just, carry on with that. Publish, you did mention the title match. My stream is taxation. Second, should it be free or paid? Okay, free or paid. We'll go with that. Okay, free or paid. Now let's whatever out of these questions will come within a discussion. We'll be discussing whatever are not in the discussion. We'll be discussing at the end, and we'll take more questions later. Is that clear? Is that fine? Okay. So we'll move ahead. Okay. Now we know that I was saying one point before we move ahead. AI, ethical use of AI. I think there is a separate session for this planned already for ethical use for AI in publication process. So I don't want to go into that detail. Ethical issues are there, so we have to use AI. There is no other option. But we have to understand, yes, there are ethical issues, right? We have to ensure that will be dealt in some other session, which I believe is already planned. So you have to be patient till then, because if we go into this domain, then ethical issues of AI, it is going to take at least one session to cover. Okay. Now, see here, you have to understand when you identify a problem, you have to see that what motivated your research. Maybe you are actually working in this specific domain. Like I'll give an example of from my side. So I am primarily a financial economist. Okay, I work on quantitative data. I believe in the rational, expectations argument. I believe that the human beings as economic agents are rational utility maximizers. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. I used to believe, right? Okay, so that time I was a very fierce proponent of this idea. I would read a lot, I would hear a lot about from this, and then suddenly, I got to hear from somebody whose name is Richard Thaler, and he has done a lot of research in behavioral finance. So I thought for a while, and I stopped for a minute, and then it came to me that this guy is also saying something which makes sense, right? He has conducted certain thought experiments, okay, asked certain questions, okay, and then based on that, he is questioning the traditional idea which is behind the economic framework. He says that no, investors do not always behave rationally. So this is the reason that motivated me to go up and take up this research based on, when I am looking at the financial risk propensity and investment decisions from a lens of behavioral biases. So human beings, have behavioral biases. Okay, they suffer from biases, and then how those biases shape their risk-taking capacity and accordingly their investment decisions. So there was something that motivated me to take this research. Okay, so how do you identify a problem? Maybe you hear from somebody something and you understand that this is a problem to be addressed. Okay, you might think it's important. Okay, like for example, my another publication which was published in IEEE, which is impact of Donald Trump's 2024 election results on artificial intelligence stock returns. See, fortunately, most of the ideas in finance we get from newspapers, so there is abundance of ideas. Every time you pick up a newspaper, maybe Economic Times, maybe Business Standard, maybe the Mint, so you get a lot of ideas. So you can think that can I apply this in my area of research? Okay. So likewise, I got to hear that Donald Trump has a specific idea with respect to AI technology. Okay, and then he is going to be elected. So I was waiting that let me see what is the stock reaction, market reaction to his election, but specifically to AI stocks. Okay, so something is happening. It's important. I believe that it's important, right? AI is changing our way of life. AI is everywhere. Fine. And if we have a president of a country which is dominating the entire globe, the US, okay, if we have a president upcoming and he has specific ideas with respect to AI technology, so let's see how it's going to impact the AI sector, okay, and how it's going to have an impact on the global sustainability. So I believe that it's important. That's why I went up and took up this research. Was there a real world trigger? Yes. Let us say that there is a war ongoing between Russia and Ukraine. Okay. And I know that a lot of research is being done in Russia and Ukraine. Okay. Now, why don't I see what is the impact on the stock markets, specifically the small and medium sectors in the Southeast Asia? Right. So the war is happening. People are doing research on this war. They are looking at the impact from many aspects. Okay, let me see what is the financial aspect. What is the impact from the financial side of this war? And that too from an unresearched area, which is Southeast Asia. People don't usually write papers for Southeast Asia, right? Ukraine and Russia is somewhere, but we know there is something very important between Ukraine, Russia, and Southeast Asia. There are a lot of trade happening between these countries. So obviously, okay, there has to be an impact. I would tell you that this particular paper, how many of you feel that I would not ask you a question, but this is just question that I should have asked here. How many of you feel that when you get significant results in a research paper, that is what will be accepted by a journal, right? All of us. I think that that's what we believe. Whenever we get significant results, we are happy, right? We are happy that yeah, this is publishable. This will be published in a good journal. Trust me, you can go through the journal. If you don't have the link to go through, I can share this with you. You will see none of the results are significant in this specific research. The impact of Russia-Ukraine war on small and medium sector in South, there is no impact at all. Even though I hypothesize that there is an impact based on the trade links that these countries have with Russia or Ukraine. Okay, I was expecting there is a relationship. There will be an impact. But trust me, if you go through the results of this paper, you will see that there is no impact at all. And this has been already published. Okay, it's a Q2 journal. The Journal of Chinese Economic and Foreign Trade Studies is a Q2, right? I'm going to tell you more about Q2, Q1, Q3, Q4 as we move ahead. You understand the point. The point here is that, you should have, it's not always that, you get insignificant results. It doesn't mean that it's publishable. It's not publishable. Yeah, it can be. you have to, what's important is that you have to justify. You have to justify your results. If you are able to justify your results, okay, if you are able to justify your findings, you will get a good paper out of it. Okay. And mostly, I'll tell you one thing, there are people who do primary data analysis. Like this financial risk propensity is a primary data analysis. Okay. And this impact of Russia-Ukraine war is a secondary data analysis. And there is not much we can do manipulation. I'm not suggesting we should manipulate, but I'm saying those who might manipulate, yeah, there is a window to manipulate when it comes to the primary data. Even though there are journals who will do cross referencing, they will do the cross check. Okay, they will catch your manipulation where the ethical issues come into place, right? But in secondary data, there's no manipulation. People who are doing their work on secondary data, which is the data that's already published, data available on platforms like Bloomberg, like OECD, okay, like other platforms. So you cannot do any sort of manipulation because it's open access. Okay, people can have the journal editor, the editorial board, they can have access. You cannot do anything in that, right? So if you get insignificant results, okay, and you believe that it is a very important issue, and it is, then you need to justify the results. And I ensure you that you are going to get it published. Okay, fine. Moving ahead, the problem should be real. You have to understand that it should not be a manifestation of your imagination. Okay, the problem should be real. It should be of concern. It should have implications. What your research you are doing, it should have implications. It should be a real problem. It should be a suffering. Okay, I'm not saying suffering from a biological point of view. I'm saying there should be groups, okay, companies, maybe there should be countries, there should be governments, okay, there should be households who are facing this problem. Okay, it should be a problem. We know in our earlier examples, okay, we know that there are, this is a very big problem that people tend to invest in stocks where they don't have any information, they don't have any knowledge. Why do they do so? Maybe they follow somebody, they are herding. It's called bandwagon effect in psychology. They are herding, okay, they are following somebody just because somebody did it, I will also do. People have overconfidence on their abilities. Maybe they don't know much about the domain, but they might do. I'm saying here, what my focus is that it should be a real problem. We know that people in reality have they face behavioral biases. So if you have behavioral biases, if you have certain biases within yourself, you cannot act rationally. Bias is something that goes against rationality. When you suffer a bias, you cannot think properly, you cannot think rationally. Okay, if I am linking my decision to a past experience, it's not rational at all because the new situation can be altogether different. I have to analyze the new situation in a unique setting. I cannot base my decision on my past experience, but that is what human beings do. Human beings base their decisions based on their past experiences. Sometimes we call it as loss aversion. We have some loss in the past, we face some loss, or regret aversion. We don't want to face a regret of loss that we faced in the past. We don't want to base our decision on that. We want to avoid that regret. We don't want to face that regret again. We might not take a good opportunity. Just to make a point that the situation should be real. Okay, Donald Trump's election result on artificial intelligence, it's a real problem. We have to see what's going to happen. Okay, it's going to set course for investments in artificial intelligence, development in artificial intelligence. Just before I came to this session, I had a reading of some professor from the US. He's writing on how the higher level on generative AI is moving on. Okay, so how we should be more prudent in investing in allocating funds, capital to that. Okay, I need to say the idea is that we have to be very prudent, and AI technology is very important. It's going to change the course of human history 100 years from now. So it's important, right? It is based on the real world issue. Okay, anyways, I'll just move on. So it should be real. Now, how do we scan the literature? Okay, so given on the gap, so how should we understand the gap? I hope that I have answered that to some extent. Some of that I'm going to answer in the next slide. Okay, regarding the gap, right? How do we scan the literature? So what keywords were used? So we have to understand, we have to use specific keywords. How many papers you should review? There is no general rule of thumb, okay? But there is a good threshold. If you are looking to publish in a good journal, take it from me, minimum you should review 50, 50 good manuscripts, which are themselves published in good reputed journals. So threshold is 50. If you want to publish in a good journal, threshold is 50. At least 50 articles. It can go up to any extent depending on the word count, depending upon the extent to which you are going deep into that particular domain. Okay, right. So there is no hard and fast rule. Okay, you can increase to any extent, but I would say that 50 is a good threshold, which I have read from many experts, from many editors as well. Okay, which platform should we use? Okay, we are going to address this in a while. Google Scholar. Have you heard about Google Scholar? Yeah, we should start our research. All of us are familiar with Google Scholar. Okay, a scholar without knowing Google Scholar is no scholar, right? So Google Scholar is our primary platform from where we can look at the already existing research. But take it from me, everything that is on Google Scholar is not credible. So you have to, trim it down. You have to scrutinize. Okay, there are other, but like EBSCO is there. You can go to EBSCO. Okay, it's a paid domain. If your organization has, if your university has some sort of, subscription, you can have access to EBSCO. It has a better filter than Google Scholar. And one free source that I would suggest is Mendeley. Mendeley is very known for citation, right? Referencing, okay, citation. But Mendeley can also be used for, manuscript search, okay, to search the right manuscript. But then I would suggest you, at least if you have subscription, okay, or without subscription as well, you might be able to do it, but I'm not that sure. Okay, we have a subscription to Scopus database, so you can search your papers on Scopus, because papers on Scopus, generally journal articles, are good in their, they're credible, because Scopus is a measure of credibility, right? Then you have to look at how much credible it is. We will go into that later. Web of Science, another source, PubMed, and there are many other sources that you can look into for doing the, literature screening. Which papers should I go with? Look into the abstract. Okay, so you have to use keywords. Fine. For example, here, if I have to do research on AI adoption in investment decisions, so primarily I know that I'm dealing with artificial intelligence. Okay, investment decision is there, right? Investment, regarding investments, adoption, I'm adopting something, right? So we can see here from the main, title that I want to work on, AI adoption in investment decisions. So I have artificial intelligence, investment, and adoption. So what are the keywords? Just giving an example. This is a work, the paper I have worked, and it's already in the process of publication. It has not been accepted as of now, but we have gone through some revisions, and it is expected to come in the next revision. I mean to say, the new response, I'm expecting that it will be an acceptance thereupon. So, when you go for keyword search, artificial intelligence, what is keyword? You have to look at keywords that define your research, okay? Okay, that are used when somebody is doing research in that particular domain, they are using those words. So people might use artificial intelligence. They might also use simply AI. So in many papers, you will only have AI written. Okay. So you need to get those papers also. Okay. Then somebody might write, or they might work with generative AI. Somebody would write, instead of AI, chat GPT in investments, right? Machine learning in investments. So you have to understand what are the synonyms associated with your basic keyword. Like investment, we have another word, investing. So somebody would write investment in their research paper. Okay, somebody would write investing. So you need to get papers which are dealing with investing also, because that's same. It's a synonym. and investing decisions or investment decisions, investment behavior, because this is a behavior. A adoption in investment decision, we are looking at the behavior. So behavior. Now, one thing you can see here, our portfolio management. Now we move on to adoption. Okay, here technology adoption. We can also write technology acceptance, technology readiness. Okay, because some papers might be focusing on those areas. Technology readiness in investment decisions with AI, technology acceptance in investment decisions in AI or portfolio management. You have to trim. See, like here, one thing I have pointed, behavioral or behavioral. What is the difference? In one spelling, there is no U because there is a British way of writing it, and one American way of writing. So there are people who write behavioral with a U and some who write without U. So you have to be cautious about it. Whenever you do a keyword search, you have to get to know that what are the different ways of writing that particular keyword. Okay, and you can also use Boolean operators and or not. Many of us are aware of this. What it is, I will just here. Mostly we use it in PubMed or Web of Science or Google Scholar, and in in the Scopus and in Google Scholar as well. You can use it. Okay, so and will you can connect them. For example, I want to use keyword like artificial intelligence. Understand? Okay, artificial intelligence. Okay, but I know that certain papers might have used the word generative AI. So what should I do? I have to broaden my research. So I will write artificial intelligence or generative AI. But if I want to, connect two things, like for example, artificial intelligence can be in different domains, in marketing, in finance, in investments, in behavior, in many other things. Okay. But I want to look at papers which are actually talking about artificial intelligence in investment. So I should put an and operator. It will narrow down the search. And I can also put a not operator in Boolean, okay, wherein I am excluding something. Okay, give me search, but without this. Right? Then how do we identify important papers? There is a concept called as snowballing. What is that? Backward search. If we get to see a new paper in a good journal and we want to look into more, research in this particular area, go backward search. What is that? Look into the references of that paper. If it's a good paper, submitted in a good journal, it will have references. It would have taken from good, because when you write yourself for a good journal, they will expect you to do the literature survey from which are impactful papers, right? So you look into the references, and there is forward search. Forward search is look into that who is being who is citing whom. Based on that, who is citing, who has the most citations. Somebody has done research in the past. Who among those are being mostly cited, right? So here there is a particular analysis tool, data visualization comes under the techniques of data visualization, WASPWeaver. Okay, so in that, if you can see, it's very small in its font because I didn't have much space. So you can see these are the papers which I have, using WASPWeaver, identified the authors at importance as per total citations. So from this, I can get an idea which are the most important papers. And again, from WASPWeaver, or like you can see here, tree map analysis, which you can do in Power BI or any other, specific, analysis tool. You can get you can get to know what are the prominent, keywords that I can use in WASPWeaver or in, Power BI, or there are many other, analysis tools, data visualization tools that give you, idea about what are the most important keywords, okay, that you should go on. Like here you can see in one of my paper, I was looking at the financial literacy, financial behavior, all that. Okay, so in that, my question is how to identify. Somebody has asked a question. Collaborative research work done and published. Can you say from your own experience? Yeah, fine. Collaborative research. Okay, fine. I'll talk about it. Okay, I'll just write it for the end. Okay, collaborative research. Okay, fine. We'll take the questions later on. Then, as whatever questions are there, I am trying to answer them in the discussion. Then we'll move on to that. Okay, so you can do this. Fine. Yeah, in collaborative research also, if you use WASP-Viewer, as we are discussing this, there is a concept called as, you know, co-occurrence, co-occurrence analysis. You can write it down, co-occurrence, where you can see the authors, they are occurring together at for multiple, these papers. Okay, who is collaborating with whom? You can get an idea that where are the collaborations being made. For example, there is a country-wise collaborative, this visualization you can draw from there. Country-wise, which countries are collaborating together more? So you can get to understand if I am in India and somebody in US, there's a lot of collaboration taking place between the two countries. So which means that I can identify people from there, or I can also identify, okay, who are the ones who are researching in this area using this data visualization technique. By this, we can understand who we can, ask for collaborations, who have already worked in this area, wherein you are generating a new idea which is linked to that, their specific research interest. Then you can do that. Another way of collaborating is interdisciplinary, as I am doing right now. I am working on, it's a funded project on UPI and credit card usage from a consumer behavior perspective. So I have collaborated with a marketing expert on this, because somebody who has expertise in consumer behavior. Okay, so I'm collaborating with him. So this is the idea. How do you do collaborations? You can do multidisciplinary collaborations, and you can also identify from data visualization, these WASP-Viewer and other tools. You can identify how collaborations are being developed. That's a specific, separate discussion. Then, so finding the right research paper is the key. So this is the, we would say, the crux of all this discussion as of now. Then we move on to finding the gap. We look into the existing literature. We look into what everybody has studied and what nobody studies. See, what we do usually, we do the literature review. We put on what he has done. He has found a significant relationship between A and B. Okay, in this context. But when we are going to do a review for a good journal, we have to do a critical analysis of your literature review. If you are for of specific topic, you are doing a literature survey, you have to bring in a critical analysis. You have to question what people have done. You have to bring in your perspective. Okay, that is one important thing we should remember. So just stating, in your literature survey, in your literature review part of your paper, Zhang et al. Has studied attitude and intention and used the TPB systematic, done a systematic review and all that. That's not how good journals look at literature review. They want to see what is your, what do you draw from that literature? How do you critically analyze that? Okay, given that, here what I'm focusing on, how to identify gap. Okay, so you should also clearly make it in a tabular form. Most of the good journals like this. Okay, make a table form, put in the study. Okay, what they have done, what you have identified as a gap in that study. They have not done that, and how do you address that gap? This is how we are going to understand, and present gap. So one is you put gap somewhere, but better way is for each paper you identify the gap and address this gap. It's not that you have to put each and every paper. You can make a snapshot of major studies, right? As I have done, snapshot of major studies, not all the studies. If you have, for example, 80 papers, you cannot put 80 papers. Maybe 10, 15, 20, or 7 or 8 or something like that. For each paper, there would be, and you have to identify that that particular paper addresses the gap which on behalf of all the other papers which are having a similar gap. So you don't need to put all the other papers as well. Just put that paper and then write down or address that gap, or how our study is going to address this gap. Okay. So for example, you can see one research study, Gupta et al. They have done digital insurance for PWDs, not government schemes, and no well-being link. They have not studied for government schemes, and there is no well-being link. They have studied attitude, effective factors, and all that. So we examine government schemes, insurance schemes, for example, and link that to financial well-being. That is how we are projecting our gap. So this becomes more acceptable, and this becomes more intuitive and clear from the perspective of the reviewers. Now, moving on to the most important part, wherein we are going to spend some time before we move on to the question answer. Is there any question that does only title matter? Okay, this we are going to do. Title of paper, sequence of steps we will do. Title of fits the scope. Okay, free or paid. We'll do this. Okay, along. So, how to select a journal? There are specific parameters. Okay, aim of the journal, what is their main aim, what is their scope, what areas they are covering. Okay, in each journal, you whenever you go to a journal, okay, you will get something like, guideline for authors, or you will get about the journal. In about the journal, you will have aim, scope, all that. Okay, so you have to understand that your paper should lie within the aim and scope of that journal. If it does not, for example, if I am doing AI in investing, but that journal publishes quantitative, it publishes on secondary data mostly. Okay, it is looking at a global, problem, but I am looking at a Indian perspective problem. It will not accept it. There was a question from some one of the uh, participants that, so she has done a research wherein she is doing something with respect to Southeast Asia, but the journal is also having a title of Southeast Asia, but it is rejected, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Good evening, sir. And
Good evening.
after reading all the journal, all the research objectives and aims, so how to summarize the journal, summarize all the contents, all the findings, how to summarize it and put it in a single paper, and how to capitalize, how to make that all the findings in a put good language. Means every journal has a different type of aspects of that topic. So
Right.
how to select the contents and make a good journal or good paper.
Good paper. I'm coming to that. Okay, I'm coming in some time. I'm coming to that. There are two approaches of doing it. Okay, I will tell you both the approaches. Fine. Okay. Now, see, understand, when we go to a journal, so every each of the journal will list down the scope. Scope means which areas, which particular domains, which particular ideas, I mean to say specific research areas it's going to publish. It usually publishes. So you have to ensure that if you are submitting to a journal, you are selecting a journal, it should your paper should lie within the scope of that journal. I give you an example. I am researching from an Indian perspective, but the journal is publishing international issues. So obviously, this journal is not going to accept my paper. I'll give an example later on. Okay, I'll give you a live example that I have consulted. You have to look at the recent papers, which is very important. Recent papers will give you an understanding that what is as of late they are publishing in which particular areas, what specific methodology they are utilizing. For example, in one of my papers, I was using event study methodology, right? Event study methodology is a specific methodology in finance. Then I came across a paper. It's again ABDCB category journal. It's a Q2 journal. It's a good journal. Okay. I saw that they have published, okay, in one of the recent papers based on event study and somewhat similar to my that particular area. And I developed a paper, okay, based on, obviously I followed that journal, which I'm going to talk about later on, and it got published. Now the point is, somebody had done study on Southeast Asia, right? Southeast Asia, just having Southeast Asia, and you are doing research on some aspect with respect to the countries in that area, will not make it acceptable for the journal. No, in my case, when I showed you that the journal title is Macroeconomic and Financial Emerging Markets, and I am actually doing the same thing, nothing different. It is exactly within the scope. It is not only the title that matters, it is mostly what important is that the scope you have to look at. What areas it is publishing in, what particular research problems it is addressing to. You cannot simply do like for example, if I am writing this paper on Southeast Asia, okay, but I am looking at I am looking at the retail. Understand the one who had raised the question and others also. Let's say I'm doing in Southeast Asia. In that context, I'm looking at the retail participation of of consumers in let's say in real estate. Okay, participation of real estate consumers. Okay, something like that. And I am sending to a paper, a journal, which is actually looking into the macro policies only, the macro aspect of policies. Like, for example, in this journal, which is I mentioned, Journal of Chinese Economic and Foreign Trade, it's mostly focusing on foreign trade, not on the domestic demand for real estate. Even though I am researching from the Southeast Asia perspective, the journal is from the Southeast Asia, okay, for example, okay, but it is not going to accept that paper because it doesn't lie in the scope. Merely having Southeast Asia as one word in that, okay, it will not help me in getting the publication. It should, your journal, the main idea of your paper should lie, it should fall in the scope of the journal. Okay. Whether the journal is a standard journal, it should be in ABDC, FTSC, if you are writing very high profile, Scopus, WS, and you also look at the impact. Okay. So, for example, I'm just giving an example of studies in economics and finance. So, when I wanted to write for this, I looked at three specific things. One is the impact factor. 6.0 Scopus is a very good impact factor, right? Cleverate, they have a different, methodology. Mostly, I go with Scopus, and that is how most of the universities go with Scopus. Okay. Second criteria, so it's a good journal. It has 6 side score. Okay. Time to first decision 16 days, which makes me understand that if this journal is going to consider, I'm going to get the response quickly in a fortnight, right? So it's a good thing. You should consider. So it should not take a year to give you the first decision or 6 months, because by that time the idea will be irrelevant. It won't be relevant anymore. If you have an idea that may not become irrelevant in the coming couple of years, then you can go for a journal that takes a lot of time to its first decision. But once you know that your idea may become redundant tomorrow, you should be very selective with that. Acceptance to publication, 42 days. Acceptance rate is very important. A journal which is good should have a low acceptance rate, but that again is a very big issue for us to get our publication there because of the low acceptance rate. But believe me, a journal which has a very high acceptance rate is not a good journal. Okay, so that means they accept anything that comes to their platform. Okay, and also in Scopus you can see that highest percentile 79, this particular journal, which means that it is out if you have 100 journals of this category, okay, it is 21st journal in ranking. Okay, that is how we understand the highest percentile. It's a good journal from that perspective, right? So from Scopus, it's a Q2. It's clearly Q2 because from Scopus it's Q1, but there is another SJR method of looking into Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. What is the level of the journal? It is Q2. They have a specific different methodology. I'm not going into that. Okay, and also you can go into this particular SCI Mago, SCI Mago, SCI MAGO. When you have to search for a journal, how it is, what level it is of, you look into you type the the title of the paper there, and you will get whether it's Q1, Q2, Q3. Q1 means it's within the top 25% of the good papers in this particular domain. Q2 is then after that. Q3 is after that. Q4 is the lowest. If a journal is not even Q4, it's not a good journal. Q4 is also not that great, but sometimes your idea is very worked upon, but it is a good idea. You have put a lot of efforts. You have your writing is very good, nice. Okay, you can publish in Q4, but my idea is that Q4 is generally not taken as a good level of publication. But those who are starting to publish, who are doing their PhD, as of now, they can start with Q4, move on to Q3, develop their expectations, go to Q2, okay, and then they can move to Q1. Q1 is the highest level in as per. So we have to reverse engineer the journal. This is one way of publication. Somebody asked a question that how you put that idea once you identify the scope and all that. How do you convert? That was the question, right? So you reverse engineer the journal. You look at the average paper length. You look at the theory. Okay, how they are putting the theories, connecting with the hypothesis, tables and figures. What is the writing style? What are the references? When you look at that, you reverse engineer. You develop your paper in line with those aspects. For example, In this case, which I have already mentioned, the studies in economics and finance. So in this case, I have, I have, I have, just a minute. Yeah, there you can see. This is the paper, Geopolitical Turbulence and Market Reactions. Okay. This I have prepared from the perspective of Studies in Economics and Finance Journal. I have looked into the scope. I saw that there are papers published in this particular domain, okay, in this area. The methodology that I'm using, they are accepting that methodology also, okay. Such problems are addressed in this particular journal, okay. Then I developed a paper looking at what they have already published, how I can bring in something new. Okay, so I had to understand, I had to redevelop my paper, my original idea from the perspective of the paper, wherein originally I wanted to look at the Russia-Ukraine war, but then I saw that many of the other journals and other publications are already published in this context. So there was another event which was the Israel-Hamas conflict. So I compared the two from the perspective of geographical proximity and trade relations. Now this is very technical. I don't want to go into that. But the idea is that I changed it. Okay, I brought in some originality in the paper. I sent it to this journal. You can see I have sent. This is the only journal I have sent this paper to, and there are many other papers which I have sent to a specific journal, tailored to that specific journal from scratch, from beginning. Okay, as somebody said, how to do it? You do it. You follow the journal. You see their paper, word count. You look into the ways, their style of writing. How do they put in the figures, tables? Okay, and most importantly, you put some references which are very relevant to your paper in that manuscript. Why? Because that will give the reviewer an idea that you are familiar with the journal. You are not just randomly selecting this journal. You are familiar with that journal. So put some references. I mean to say, do some literature review, okay, from that particular journal which is relevant to your paper. It will add a lot of value to your publication and it will give acceptance. Okay. Now, this is one way. This is called reverse engineering. You look at a journal and then you draft a manuscript as per the requirements of that journal, okay, from scratch. Or you write a manuscript and then find an appropriate journal. But I would tell you this is very difficult. So this is what we all do mostly. We prepare some manuscript and then we start sending and we get rejections. This is where we get most of the rejections. This route. This is the approach where we get most of the rejections. Okay, so the option one, which I'm telling you, reverse engineer the journal. Okay, select the journal. Then I had a paper which I recently was accepted in a journal, which I reverse engineered. I mean to say, I wrote that paper from the perspective of the requirements of the scope of that journal. But unfortunately, at the end, after acceptance, it got rejected because of some technical issues. I'm not going to discuss that. But based on this particular reason, I reverse engineered and it was tailored to that specific journal. It became very difficult for me to publish it anywhere else. You're understanding? As of now, it is given consideration in a journal. But it took me a lot of time, okay, to select that journal. But this is very rare. When you do reverse engineering, you select a journal and look at the scope of the journal and prepare your manuscript accordingly. I'm telling you, there is around 95% chance that it will be accepted in that journal. For me, it has been 100%. There hasn't been even a single paper wherein I have first selected a journal, then developed my paper accordingly, and that idea I have trimmed according to the journal. There hasn't been a single instance where it was rejected. The one I have discussed, it was rejected, but after acceptance because of some technical issues. Okay, the rest of all of my papers have been accepted and published, and there has been 100% publication. I am guaranteeing you, okay, 95 to 99% publication guarantee if you use this route. Okay, but the other route wherein you develop a manuscript and then find an appropriate journal, you have to do. Every time you select a journal, you have to add some references, remove the earlier ones, do some trimming, okay, adapt it to that particular journal. That is how you do it. Okay, it's a very hectic process. But again, the point is that the paper is not that strictly aligned to one specific journal that you cannot change it to a significant extent. You can do that. In the earlier case, it becomes a little bit difficult once it is rejected. Okay, here, even if it's rejected, but then you can trim the paper, change the paper accordingly. But then understand this route is always lengthy. It always leads to a lot of rejections before you get the acceptance. So going through this journal specific information is very important. Look for the scope of the journal always. Examples I'm going to share: Russia-Ukraine war, as I have told you earlier. Okay, Russia-Ukraine war. This impact of Russia-Ukraine on small and medium sector. So this is one method to write a paper. Okay, one another method. This was a special issue. This was a special issue by a journal, which is this Journal of Chinese Economic and Foreign Trade Studies Policy. So they had come up with a special issue of, remember that analyzing the stock market response of medium and small and medium sector in Southeast Asia and China to the Russia-Ukraine war. This was more or less the same title. So I developed a paper in line with the title because I know the methodology. The title is relevant, okay? And in special issues, methodology generally doesn't, create a problem. If you are using any other methodology, okay, even though the general paper does not accept that particular, or is not publishing with that methodology, it works with a special issue always because they want different perspectives on the same problem. So I got it published. This was the only journal because I made it for the journal. It was a special issue. I wrote it for this journal. Okay, and also you can do one thing before writing. You can write an abstract to the editor before writing for the special issue. You can write an abstract of that particular paper that you are intending to write to the editor. Once you get a green signal, you can develop the full paper and submit, and there will be more chance that it will be accepted. Geopolitical, I have explained this. See, this is a paper, Impact of COVID-19, which I had not written from the perspective of a specific journal. You can see there are so many rejections, rejected, and I have tried to change the name. And somebody said that, does the title of the paper matter? Like, for example, in Asia Pacific financial markets, I changed the title. I tried to be very intelligent. Impact of COVID-19 lockdown on because the countries were Asia Pacific countries. Okay, Asia Pacific and European region. I wanted to make, that sort of an impression that they rejected because it does not fit in the scope of the journal. I hope the questions that relevant to this has been answered. Okay, so likewise, you cannot simply, just change the title, try to fit the title with the. You have to see the scope of the journal should be in line with your work. Okay. So then afterwards, it is under review as of now. You can see in the Japanese political economy, it's under review, but nothing has come as of now. We are still waiting. A parsimonious three-factor model, which we have sent originally to Asia Pacific financial markets, got rejected because it's an Indian context. They said that we are not going to do publish. We don't publish in country specific. Okay, you have to be a little bit more general, okay, global, or maybe Asia Pacific, which is relevant, which fits in the scope. Then we moved on and searched a journal, which is a good journal, okay, which is a Journal of Indian Business Research, a Q2 journal again. It's a very good journal, okay. And you can see we have started as a parsimonious three-factor model, and finally the published paper is a parsimonious five-factor model. So you can see a lot of changes are happening. The process is not as smooth as we may think. Okay, any other question which is okay, sequence we'll do later. Title I have addressed. Okay, there was a question on title of the paper. So how should you have a very fancy title? I am sorry to say that yes, that is the reality, that titles have to be fancy. Fancy, I mean to say they should not be very straightforward. Okay, I don't see journals usually nowadays picking up very straightforward titles. So don't ruin your good idea by just putting a very mediocre title. Okay, you should put up a title. Even though I can tell you here, a parsimonious three-factor model of the Indian market revisiting it's a very ordinary title, but what is important? It is clearly communicating the entire paper in one line. That is more important. Okay, the entire paper should be communicated in few words in one line with your title. And yes, if you are able to get something very attractive, it's always welcome from the editors and reviewers. Now moving to rejections. So you should take rejection as chance of improvement. You can see in this particular paper, in studies in economics and finance, I had sent earlier one other paper. So what they have sent, I write you in regards to manuscript this, which you submitted. In light of the appropriateness of your manuscript for a journal, your manuscript has been denied publication. So what they are saying, your paper addresses an interesting topic. It is interesting. However, it's a local issue. Price discovery in Indian spot and futures. Studies in economics and finance, they are looking for a from a global perspective. They don't take papers from a local perspective. Okay, this is one. So I understood that this journal, if I have to write, I have to write from a global perspective. That is how I came up with that idea later on. Journal of Chinese Economic and Foreign Trade Studies, I submitted a paper, Impact of COVID-19 Lockdown. They have mentioned that we are unable to accept because it's mentioned that the editorial team feels that the chance of the paper successfully going through our peer review is not high. So they are saying that the quality is not good. Simply, okay. Global Business Review, I submitted a paper long before during the time of my PhD. So weak methodology, lack of theoretical framework, findings are not convincing. So you can build on these responses accordingly. So reasons of rejection can be, if we summarize, it can be a poor fit, okay, with the journal's aim and scope, not relevant to the journal's readership, weak contribution, okay. So failure to follow journal guidelines. Sometimes you make silly mistakes. You don't follow the guidelines. Your paper is very good, but there's a word count. You have to follow that. There's a specific formatting style. You have to follow that. There's a specific style of referencing. You have to follow that. Okay, you have to be precise. How you put the tables, figures. Okay, how to write the captions. It's very important. Low methodological rigor. Any of it can be reasons for rejection. So a good paper submitted to the wrong journal is still likely to be rejected. Somebody said my paper was very good, but you are submitting it to a wrong journal. So you should I'll tell you later on. Okay, so you have to select a good journal. Getting a paper now. Moving on, getting a paper to revision stage is 90% work. Every time my paper gets into revision major, I become happy. Why? Because this is now my chance to get it accepted. And I will tell you, out of 100, I mean to say, there has not been even a single time when my paper went into major revision and it did not get accepted. Once you get into major revision, you have to ensure that it gets accepted, and that's your key. The reviewer is telling you in other words that I like your paper, but there are some changes that you have to do. So how to proceed? You should not respond immediately. Don't take it personally. Read the comments properly. See, I take a lot of time, not only 2 days, day or two. I take a lot. I might take a week. So when I'm going to my office, coming back, I keep on thinking. I read the comments properly. I keep on thinking. I build a framework in my mind, how to respond, what changes can I do, what I cannot do, right? So the reviewer is not reviewing you, it's reviewing your manuscript. You have to understand that. Okay. So usual concerns are, research gap not properly identified, originality lacking, inappropriate discussion, contributions are over. See, generally, the paper has everything, but you have to get that out. For example, I told you for originality, papers have originality, but you are not able to, place or project or that originality. Okay, you might not be lacking originality, you might be lacking the ability to present that originality. You might have identified a gap, but you are not presenting it properly. That's very important. You have a good finding, but you are not doing a good discussion of that finding. You are not linking that finding to the practice, to theory, other things, right? You are generalizing your contributions. You are not going into the specifics of your findings. So if you have 1, 2, 3 findings, you should get 1, 2, 3 contributions specific to those findings. That is what they are expecting from you. I've given some, reviewer comments. Okay, so this is, they are commenting. This is a major revision, which I am. So the first author has asked for major revision. The other one has asked for a rejection. They are giving a rejection decision. Okay, minor revision. Okay, just going through all that. Okay, you can get. I will go through. For example, here you can see. I will just read a couple. See, what is the rationale behind selecting BSc Sensex? This is a query. Demonetization is another event that Indian stock market has gone through. Why haven't you taken that? This is just, I need to justify. See, understand, every comment needs not to be addressed as a change in the manuscript. If you say that this is something out of the scope of my current study, you can justify it's not in my scope. I will show you that. Okay, I'll show you that. So minor revision, for example, the author has taken only E-Garch. Why haven't you taken GJR Garch? I have to justify. Minor revision means justifying. I should not be doing a GJR Garch, another methodology, because it's a minor revision. I have to justify now. Okay. So oversight, there are mistakes of oversight. For example, here you can see manuscript reads well and is technically well put together. But see, still further to my previous comment about the results of the hypothesis testing in table 7, it is unclear why hypotheses which are diametrically opposite to proposed ones are said to be supported. What happened? I had said that there's a positive relation, hypothetically, but the result is a negative and significant. I have mentioned supported, but it is not supporting the hypothesis. My hypothesis is suggesting a positive relation, but I got a significant negative. But seeing a significant relation, I thought I'm supporting. Okay, it is supported. That is what they have, identified here. It's an oversight. Okay, it's not a problem. You can see how I have addressed certain issues. The topic of the paper is good, and it's a nice attempt. Okay, that's one. Fine. See, okay. See, many statements made through the paper could be backed up by multiple sources. So I have replied, we have gone through the paper again, added more citations. Okay, done. We have done that. Okay. See, in the case of a small sample, PLS-SEM is last comment on the left side. In the case of a small sample, PLS-SEM is not suitable. Why have authors used SEM? So we have justified. Sample size is 200, about 200. It's adequate to use SEM. We need not to use PLS-SEM or smart PLS. The below one, yeah. Okay, if loss aversion is taken twice in the figure, one of them should be, yeah, that was the problem, that's the correction we have made. I hope it's clear. Okay, like see here, please justify why UTART versus was used, not UTART2. And we have mentioned that we have neither used UTART nor UTART2. We have used some other model. But as we have mentioned, it's creating a lot of confusion. So we are removing it. Okay. Likewise here, so here they are asking that you should do some more analysis, more methodology. So we have done that. So this is incorporated. So understand there are 4 categories of comments. One is easy, formatting, grammar, reference typos. It's easy. We should always make changes because that is in the interest of a good publication. Then we have moderate, additional literature, critical analysis, more explanation, improve figures. We should always make the change. Okay, these things we should always make change. Then we have difficult ones, additional analysis, do additional tests, test alternate models, do a theory revision. Now, you should most of the times go for incorporating the change. If at all you see it seems like, you cannot do any change. The alternative model will not work in this specific scenario. Provide justification. And then finally, reviewers most of the times, they will ask you to collect new data, increase sample size. Okay, run some specific analysis which is not supported by data. So what should you do? Don't do it. Even though they're asking for it, don't be scared. Okay, you just have to provide the justification for that. So what are the common mistakes to avoid? Choosing the wrong journal, ignoring author guidelines, weak positioning of the research gap, weak contribution, too generic, poor literature review, mismatch between questions and methodology, overstating results, weak discussion, and poor language. These are general what we have covered altogether, right? So what are the smart? Yeah, Dinesh Kumar. Yeah. Question? Yes. Any question? So what I'm saying here, what are the smart publication strategies, which is what I have realized over my years of experience. So first, reverse engineer the journal. This is the most successful method and most promising method of publication, reverse engineer. And cite relevant papers from the target journal. You have to show them that we are familiar with the journal. It's not something new. We know the writing style. We know how things are taken up, all those things. We have to study the editorial board. Why? Because while studying the editorial board, the members, their interests will be known. So you develop a paper with respect to the interest, what interests them. because it is them who are going to accept or reject. Okay, so review papers for that journal whenever you want to submit in a particular journal. So before that, you want to develop a paper for that through reverse engineering. So you do one thing: register in that journal, create an account, and start reviewing their papers whenever they come. Your publication in that journal will increase. I have seen this personally. Okay, and read the published papers of that journal. Read instructions for the authors carefully. When you send the paper, you write a strong cover letter. In that cover letter, you just identify the strong points and how it relates to their journal. Just don't do an AI sort of write up. Just identify properly, look into the paper, look into the journal, and then come up with the points. And keep up with the recent issues. See what they are already publishing. And mostly, go participate in conferences, build relationships there. Okay, which is very important. Okay, so publication formula: good research, right journal, strong positioning, and careful submission. This will give you higher probability of publication, not guarantee. Guarantee is not there. Higher probability always, right? So as much time selecting a journal, you should spend almost the same time, write what you spent in writing a paper. I'm not saying you write a paper in 6 months, you take 6 months to select a journal, but the effort has to be like that. So question answers. Before that, I will just go through the questions which are there. Okay. Does only title matter? No, I have answered this. Sequence of steps is, I believe that, sequences like that, you have to follow what I have discussed in these slides. You follow those that sequence of steps. Okay. Reverse engineering, I would, most likely, recommend. Title that fits the scope. Yes. Choose the title that fits the scope. Yes. So not only title represents your work. You cannot simply, I showed you that I simply changed the title. I nudged it a little bit so that it fits the scope, but it did not. Because merely writing Asia Pacific doesn't make the paper fit for the scope, fit that paper into that scope of that journal. Okay. Free or paid. So see, I'll tell you one thing. If you have a funding, you should always go for journals which have APC or open access. Why? Because for open access, the competition is very less. There aren't many people who want to publish by paying, article processing charge. So if you have funding or you can pay out of your pocket, it's a good thing. You will have an open access journal publication. It will have citations also. Your credibility will grow. But mostly we don't have that. So I believe that what I have been doing most of the times, I go for journals which are either giving both options or those journals which do not go for open access. Okay. Collaboration, I have, I think, focused a little bit. So is there any question? Is there any question? Any other question that you need to ask? Because this now 5 minutes or more, whatever time will be required, we'll give it for question and answer. Yes. Sir, Samik sir, your voice is not audible. I think that you are asking something, but your mic is turned off.
Actually, sir, I want to know, sir, if my writing is good, but maybe the citation is not good, will the journal be accepted? Or will my journal be...
Can you switch off the mic? Yeah, switch off the mic, others. Yeah. So see, all these things are important. If your writing is good, but the material that you are using to build that writing is not up to the mark, because most
Yes,
of the journals, they will do they will look into the references. Where are you getting your references from? Where are you citing your work from? If that
yes.
is not from good journals, then there's a very high chance you will not get published, even though it's a very good paper. But you
Okay.
have to show them that you have see, the point is, whenever you get, I have seen this, whenever I send a paper, see, human nature is such that you miss, and by the time that paper is reaching that review process and then going for review, till then there are publications coming on in that domain, right? So many reviewers, they comment that these are the papers which you have missed, which are very important and which are very new. Then that has to be incorporated. Okay, good papers. Why are they looking into that? Because they want you to base your ideas from credible sources. Yes.
And the other question, my last question, is the analysis part is necessary, like using the PLS and also
No,
structure
no,
equation?
no, no.
Not
See, it depends on what you are doing. Okay. If you are using multiple variables and you are trying to establish simultaneous relationships, then you should go for smart PLS or structural equation model. But if, for example, your variables, you don't have the requirement of simultaneous modeling, then that's not required. You can go for regression analysis, ANOVA, MANOVA. There are many other techniques also. You can go with
yes.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question, guys? Come on. Questions? So I hope that the questions that were raised earlier, I have answered most of those questions during my discussion. If any of the questions has not been attended or answered, you can ask them again here. If there is something more
Yes, sir.
clarification you require.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes.
Professor, I want to do a general comment. Like as throughout am I audible?
Pardon again.
Hello.
There's some sort of interference. Yeah, please go again. Come again, please.
Hello.
Yeah,
Okay.
come again, please.
As throughout of your lecture, one thing that I have observed that in these days in research, there is a kind of standardization is being observed. Like we have to follow some kind of norms. Like if we
Yes.
have to produce something new in research, do you not think these kind of standardization, even it is being put in by the journals, is restricting to produce something new in research, like to produce new knowledge, if we have to certain follow certain norms and standardization that journals are expecting from us. I want your general comment if you want, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the question. It's a very important question. I have two aspects, two aspects of this question, and there are two answers. One is yes, there is standardization, what you are saying, but I would say that it is not restricting new knowledge. Standardization in itself is not restricting new knowledge. So why? How? You know, um, the restrictions, whatever are they are put into place so that a proper structure is followed. But it doesn't limit you to come up with some new idea, first and foremost. Okay. Um, Obviously, new idea doesn't mean that it is unrelated to anything existing. So what we believe that a new idea is something which is altogether something which has not been dealt anywhere. It is not. That's not the only definition of a new idea. A new idea can offshoot from an existing idea. Okay, I'll give you just an argument here. For example, in finance, we have efficient market hypothesis, rational expectations, and then from psychology, Herbert Simmons has given bounded rationality. And combining everything together, Andrew Blue in the Journal of Economic Perspectives has come up with an idea which goes by the name adaptive market hypothesis. It's a new idea, right? But it is bringing in ideas. It's collaborating or drawing ideas from existing theories and building on that. So it's a new, and it's published in a journal which is also a structured journal which has its own formatting. It has its own framework, structure. All that has to be followed. That's one perspective. Second, there are many journals in your specific domain you can go and check, which are promoting theory building. They give you scope for such research wherein there won't be any restrictions with respect to a number count, okay, a specific style. You have to follow methodology and the analysis and that. No, grounded theories, okay, grounded theories, theory building. There are journals which in your domain would be so you have to do that research. I hope that I have answered your question, right? Yeah. Any other participant who wants to ask questions related to or has clarifications with respect to what we have discussed earlier? Is that it? Dr. Firdos Saab, I just want to request you that earlier when you took the picture, my background was not there. So if you can take a picture again, I'm sorry. Right
No,
now, I
don't worry. There are ample, number of pictures I have taken with the background.
okay, okay. Thank you
So
so much. Thank you so much.
yeah. So now I think, we can have a first, formal vote of thanks from our moderator. Then we can have
Okay.
again, group of. Yes. Please go ahead
I,
because there are no questions now further.
yeah. Distinguished resource person, coordinators, and participants. As we wind up today's virtual session, I extend our sincere gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Khalid Islam, for an extraordinarily practical presentation on the topic research life cycle from problem identification to journal publication. Sir, you have provided us with a clear roadmap for executing high impact research. A major highlight of your interactive session was you showcased us your personal research wall. So, through which you shared your personal journey of research, revealed the real world facts and secret behind publishing in top tier journal indexed in Scopus, Web of Science, etc. We especially commend the effort of you for taking questions directly from our audience and providing grounded and candid answers drawn from your personal experience, sir. So thank you so much for spending some 2 hours of time with us and providing us insightful experience of yours. I would also like to thank Dr. Firdos Ahmad Malik for your effort for organizing this FDP and also Sir's keenness to facilitate the smooth functioning of this program. I will also like to thank all other organizers and committee members for the support they have provided for the conduct of this session. And not the least, I would like to thank all our participants for your sustained interest and presence throughout this session. You have made this session highly interactive, and we could gain more insight from Sir through your questions. So, when we are winding up this session, I would like to remind you about tomorrow's session. Please note that tomorrow, July 22nd, we will resume at 6:30 p.m. for the day 3 on the topic, the research publication journey. Thank you all and have a good evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Arya, Dr. Firdos Saab, for having me for this session. I'm very grateful to Dr. Firdos Saab and Jammu and Kashmir Economic Association for giving me this platform so that I could share my ideas, my experiences, and participants could benefit. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for organizing this wonderful event.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
sir. Thank
much.
you so
On
much, sir.
behalf of Jammu and Kashmir Economic Association, I want to share my sincere gratitude to our resource person, Professor Khalid Islam, and Dr. Arya for your deliberations during the session and your precious time accepting our invitation with a very short notes. So we are having great privilege to having you for today's session, and starting the session one, it really makes a great start, and I have captured and framed it a great memory we'll be sharing on our social media and all. So once again, sharing my sincere gratitude to all the participants, resource person and moderator on behalf of all organizing institutions like Jammu and Kashmir Economic Association, SSI International, Global Research Forum, Crescent, University, and Manav Rachna University, Vocational College, Delhi University. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Uh,
Thank you.